weeks ago, or even into last week, I ended up having to do a little bit of rescheduling with clients because it's been such crappy weather. Well, one of the clients that I tried to call and do a reschedule on, he said, Donna, you know what, don't worry about it. We don't have to have you come back in and do this. We know this already. We've had this. We've got Minnesota Right to Know on the plan for today. So what do you guys know about that? Did I have to go back and retrain that client with Minnesota Right to Know just because they've had it in the past before? You bet. The answer is yes. This is one of these that we get to talk about every single year, just to make sure that you guys are up on what it is that you have to know where your Minnesota Right to Know is concerned. So what are we talking about today? The title for Minnesota Right to Know is a little bit misleading. What do you have the right to know? Everything. Right. What do you have the right to know? What does this even have to do with?
Chemicals?
Chemicals, you bet. Yep, chemicals. Anything that you are tasked with working with out in your workspace, chemical, hazard-wise. And kind of just like I asked you last month when I was here, anybody in here ever work in a different state? Ever? Different states call this something else. Nobody else, Minnesota's very special, nobody else calls it Right to Know. Any idea what it's called in other states?
I can't remember.
You remember, right, it's on the tip of your tongue, it's hazard
Where?
communication. Hazard, you're close, hazard communication, and really all it is to make sure that you fully understand what those chemicals are all about, and how they can hurt you, how they can change your life, and how they can change your family's life, so.
Safety data sheets.
Yep, you got it, you guys know all the terminology that's surrounded with this, so we'll just kind of do a little bit of an update and get kind of a refresher for you. The first few slides that we're going to go through, you'll see they're all accident-related, chemically, how do I word this? Chemical-related accidents that have occurred in the state of Minnesota. They're things that OSHA has had to go in and do accident investigations on. OECS has had to help with a couple of these accident investigations. So I'll show you what I'm thinking here. Think the process through and why it is that training and sitting in here every single year and training on your hazard awareness, why is that important to us? And you're gonna see through the next few slides. The first one here, concrete sealer had been applied to newly poured concrete slabs in an outdoor courtyard area that is located in close proximity to fresh air intakes. Customer service employees began feeling sick and were eventually evacuated. Some of these that are coming up, you're not going to necessarily know the whole story behind the accident, but the end story of this is a couple of these people were hospitalized because of the accident. What do you know about what your requirements are if somebody at Pope Douglas is ever hospitalized due to an accident? What do you have to do? What's your requirement? Get you to the hospital and get your care first, but what else after that? What's called OSHA. Yep, you basically have to tap it on yourself and let OSHA know that somebody got hurt and had to go to the hospital. More than likely, it's gonna open up an investigation. That's what happened with this company. Do you guys ever have third parties in here? Do you ever invite other contractors in here to do work for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a silly question. They're all over, aren't they? Especially when you guys do these shutdowns or you've got a special project that you need somebody to come in and work on. That's exactly the scenario with this company in this accident. They had a third party come on site that was gonna work with their concrete. You guys know, and Steve knows this, Brooke knows this, whenever you guys invite third party in here, now all of a sudden you guys are the boss. You all have responsibilities with your safety, but as soon as you invite them in here, you guys become the prime contractor. Why is that? Why does that matter?
It's our site.
Yeah, now you're inviting somebody else in here that might not know all your safety rules, and they put you maybe in harm's way. What happened with this company is this third party came in, their management doesn't do the great job that you guys do and confer with this third party that comes in. What you guys need to do if somebody comes in and they're using chemicals, they actually need to bring their safety data sheets in with them. You gotta know what the hazards are gonna be, how they're gonna be posed to you as a hazard, and that's exactly what happened with this company. Nobody conferred with the third party when they came in, and all of a sudden we had employees getting sick. So that's part of it. Part of the training is to understand what your responsibility is with third parties when they come in. The second one here, custodian was exposed to chlorine gas mixed with muriatic acid in the pool area. Do you see a problem at all? Without even knowing the rest of the story. Any issues? Mixing for one. Are you ever tasked with mixing chemicals together at all? Usually not. I do have a couple of clients that have to play chemists, they have to mix. We've had some incidents with that just because they don't understand fully what the hazards are when you mix chemicals. Even if you have no idea how this kind of played out, what do you suppose, what does that signage tell you? What do you remember from your GHS training or from your hazard communication training about that picture?
Toxic gas.
Toxic, something bad. You're gonna have to give this chemical, whatever it is, a little bit of respect, because when you see a skull and crossbones, that's gonna be bad for you. I'm curious about every single thing when safety is kind of at the forefront. So what I did was went onto my phone and Googled muriatic acid, SDS. Did you know that you could do that?
Yeah.
Pull up Google if you're curious about a chemical that you guys are working with and you don't wanna go find a safety data sheet, Google it. The very first thing that I saw when I pulled up muriatic acid in big letters, it says, do not mix with other chemicals. Because already, right off the bat, you know that muriatic acid doesn't play nice with any other chemicals. Where this client was concerned, the custodian showed up, they were new on the job, and the supervisor didn't clarify what the hazards were with these particular chemicals that they were gonna be using. So be aware, if you're tasked with using any chemicals, anything that's new that's coming your way, make sure you ask questions. Again, we talk about this in the form of communication, and again, with the title of right to know. You guys have a right to know how these things are gonna hurt you. The third and final one, as part of a chlorine changeout process, a mill operator disconnected an empty bank and unhooked a live cylinder, resulting in exposure to chlorine gas. Again, you don't know the whole situation, but here's how this one played out. Have any of you ever been a brand new employee ever in your life? First day on the job? All of us have been there before, haven't we? This person came in on a Monday morning and sat down with their supervisor, and the supervisor, the story went a little bit like this. So this is what you're gonna be tasked with doing, do you understand? And the new employee didn't wanna be a weenie about the job, so he said, yeah, I get it. I mean, I understand what I'm gonna do. That was the only training that he got. Was that even training? He didn't understand, he didn't know the scope of what he was gonna be looking at, and all of a sudden it landed him a trip to the hospital. So ask questions. If it has anything to do with chemicals at all that you're using, make sure that you understand what the hazards involved can be. So what are some of the best ways for Pope Douglas or for Donna to come in here and communicate with you what your hazards are where chemicals are concerned? What's the best way to communicate those hazards with you? You said one of them. Safety data sheets. There's a ton of information on those safety data sheets. What are we doing today? Your training. So first and foremost, one of the best ways to communicate what you're looking at out in your workspace is to talk through the training piece of it, and then safety data sheets fall in here too. Where are your safety data sheets?
Control room, they should be posted, scale. probably.
Scale room, you find them, yep, you'll find them in binders out in the scale room.
They'll be in
No.
the containers where we store
I
the
think
chemicals.
there's one
They're
up
kind
in
of-
the Murph break room too.
They're kind of spread out a little bit. So if we
Maybe
ever,
Corey's office. I'm
if
not
we ever
sure.
change our process and say, you know what, we don't want them out there anymore, we're gonna put them in Steve's office, does that work?
No,
Why not?
have to be readily available.
24/7, right? You guys have to be able to get to those at all times. That's why they're posted in like break rooms or in scale houses where things are open for you 24 hours a day. So that's one of the requirements. One of the other requirements is that you get training annually. And there's not a whole lot surrounded with this where OSHA puts out, but most of what we're talking about today is a requirement. And then another great way to communicate hazards too is gonna be labeling, and we're gonna talk about that in just a couple of slides here. Do you remember all the pictograms? How many of you have ever bought a product in a box? You either went to Walmart or Target and brought this piece of product home, and now you gotta put it together, you gotta build it. How many of you are really good at reading the instructions? I throw that right out the window. I don't read instructions. I either dump everything out on my living room floor and sit down and put it together and just look at the picture, or I might open the instruction piece that was sent with it and look at pictures. I won't read, because I'm much too busy for that. Pictograms, and all of these pictograms that you're seeing here right now, kind of play the same function. If you don't want to read through the whole 16 sections of a safety data sheet, or read through a label that's on any of your chemicals, all you have to do is look at the pictograms and get a good idea what that chemical is all about. We're going to talk about those through the rest of the presentation as well. Remember last time when I came, we talked about your Minnesota AWARE program, and AWARE was actually an acronym that was put together to hopefully help you remember what the AWARE program was all about. There's a new acronym for you today. OSHA put this one together, and we're calling it the FACTOR system. You can see what FACTOR stands for down on the left side here: flammable and corrosive, toxic and reactive. What OSHA's hope with this is to get you to kind of think the process through. We're gonna take a look at flammables, corrosives, toxics, and reactives. But then, if you know that you've got some of these things out in your area, how do you protect yourself? What are your precautions in each of these areas? And here we go. What do you know of out in your area that's flammable? What do you have out there? Besides garbage. Combustible. What's flammable?
Fuel.
You do have fuel, you talked about that this morning.
Propane. There's
Propane,
propane line.
yep, you've got propane out there. Do you have gasoline in any of the gas tanks or any of
Yeah.
that? How about any cleaners? Do you have
Yeah.
anything out there that could be?
Yeah.
So you've got a few
Flammable.
things that are flammable. Yep, so what you know, what we're hoping for you to do is think about this in your areas. If you know you've got something flammable, now how do you protect yourself? Depends on, if you've got 55-gallon drums out there, a lot of times you have to ground and bond and make sure that nothing is gonna spark and start on fire for you. One of the other great things that you need to think about is this avoiding sparks. Now that you've got third party in here during some of your shutdown and they're working, you gotta be aware of where those sparks are going, don't you? Because let's say somebody's out there grinding or welding and all of a sudden they're producing a sparking action. Is there a flammable right next to it that's all of a sudden gonna cause you an issue? So just a good way to think about your areas. If you know you've got flammables, look around and just be aware. How about corrosives? Do you have anything out there that might be considered corrosive that you can think about? There's maybe a few things out there that could be. Do you have battery acid? That's usually common to most of my clients. If there's battery acid out there at all, if you know that there is an acid type of a product, your best precaution in this type of an area is PPE. What kind of PPE would you wear if you were working with a corrosive type of material?
Gloves.
Gloves, cover that up, right?
Yeah.
Your safety glasses are a must. How about sometimes a face shield? Do you ever have to put one of those on when there's any kind of a hazard coming at your face? You bet.
Yeah, that should be specified on the safety dash.
You are awesome. You're heading in the right direction. We're gonna talk about what your safety data sheets look like in just a bit here. Check out that pictogram. This is one of my favorites. You can see that whatever this chemical is that you're working with is corrosive. If it lands on something that's metal, it's gonna eat a hole. Well, then look right next to it. There's a picture of somebody's hand. Of course it's gonna eat a hole in the hand, isn't it? And we're on to the T for the factor system, toxics. Anything out there that you can think of in your world that's toxic? Again, sometimes cleaners. I don't know what you've got out there along the lines of cleaners or paint thinners or anything like that. One of the precautions that we look at here is making sure that you have adequate ventilation. If it feels like you're working with some kind of a chemical out there and it's getting stinky or getting a little bit stronger, open some garage doors, get a fan going. You're just trying to create something so that the air is a little bit more clear for you to breathe. And then PPE, if you've got a toxic, something that's gonna make it difficult for you to breathe, what kind of PPE do you think you'd add to your world? Face mask and respirator. Yeah, get some kind of fresh air into your system if you're working with a toxic like this. And check out the pictograms, you already know what that one means. Any idea what the exclamation mark means?
Caution.
It is a caution type of a pictogram, but what this one stands for, if you ever see this on a label, all it means is if you touch it, if you get it on your skin, it's gonna cut, you're gonna know that it was there. It's gonna give you a rash, it might itch a little bit, it might burn. It's not highly corrosive if you see this. But what does that one mean? I call it the exploding chest. Yep. That's when you're gonna know that you might wanna wear a respirator, because it's gonna cause you harm from the lungs, from the inside out. So a good way to think these through. You guys are doing great. Do you have any reactives out there? And when I say reactives, it means that you've got two chemicals that are not gonna work together very nice. They're gonna fight. Anything that you can think of? You can see it. There's our picture. Do you ever have compressed gas that sits on a cart like that together? You got oxygen and acetylene out there? Well, the funny thing about this is they work together on a cart. You need them both for the task that you're performing, but why do we say that they're reactive and they're not gonna play nice together? What do you know, what are you supposed to do with those compressed gas cylinders when you're not gonna use that cart for more than a 24-hour period? What do you have to do?
Turn them on.
Turn them off.
Chain them up.
Chain them up, but what are you gonna do before you chain them up?
Turn them
You
off.
turn them off, you take them off that cart, don't you? That's the piece that a lot of people forget. You don't just turn them off and get the regulator down to zero. You actually have to separate them and chain them. Why are we chaining them? Why do you have to do that? What happens if you knock one of those over and you break the head off? What direction is it gonna go?
Whatever direction it's
Anywhere it wants to go. What do you know about this pictogram? What does that mean?
Boom.
Yep, something's gonna explode. Your precautions when you're dealing with something that's reactive or something that is this highly cautious, your precautions here are care during use. When I talk to you about your hot work, Your care during use, I'm hoping that when you're moving any of those cylinders, you are moving them and treating them like a carton of eggs. Basically, is how you have to treat those cylinders. And just a few more precautions for you to take when you're out in your areas. If you know that you've had your hands in a chemical, or you've been touching something, or maybe it got through your gloves, get in